This next section is called Innovative Middle Leadership. And I'm pleased to say that the Leadership Academy for Wales runs a series of innovation programs, if you like, and we've had some fantastic speakers talking about innovation. And as part of that series and as part of that program, lots of leaders, but middle leaders, have had the opportunity to bid for and apply for a small amount of funding to run innovative projects within their school and within their clusters of schools. And this afternoon, we're going to hear from two of those individuals. The first to go this afternoon is Rhian Milton from Cadoxton Primary School, who worked in partnership with Oakfield Primary School. Over to you, Rhian.
Hounds are everybody. Lovely to see you all, even though virtually. I know lots of you haven't got your screens on, but lovely to see you all. So I'm Rhian Milton, head of school at Cadoxton Primary School. One of our aspiring middle leaders is actually on this course today, Lucy Dundee, and actually she was kind of the inspiration for a middle leadership course that we ran here from Cadoxton and from Oakfield, because it was a partnership course. So I just want to talk to you all today really about what we did within the course and how important we felt that was. And the different aspects that we feel have helped us as a school, and I know Oakfield as a school, but also those leaders across the country to come together and really have some shared focuses about what middle leadership is, and what it becomes as well. Because what the course really addressed was that 35 different leaders from across Wales had a really different view of what middle leadership was and what it could be in the future, particularly with being mindful of the curriculum for Wales and all the changes that are happening. So I'm going to just share my screen now and talk you through the course and then open it up to questions at the end. So bear with me a second, check that my tech's working now, fingers crossed.
Yeah, that's good.
Excellent. Just press play and away we go. Okay, so you can see actually a picture, as much as she's not on the screen, I'm going to embarrass her now, but Lucy Dundee is the teacher there in the corner with that inspiring face. But the reason we created this course was that we felt that people who weren't on their leadership journey yet, but had showed an aspiration for wanting more, and showed that aptitude to really think about who they are as a teacher, and that they have that love of learning. And Lucy's journey was that she really was on that path, and that love of learning was a big part of who she is as a teacher, and who she wants to probably be in the future as a leader. So as a school leader myself, it's really my job to find the opportunities for her to reach her full potential and to become a leader that she wants to be. And, you know, that course was really about giving people a flavour of what leadership could be in the future. So it needed a lot of careful creation. So I'm just going to move on now. So the first thing we did was to actually think about that audience in a really great depth, to say, okay, who are our leaders of the future? And the programme targeted asking those questions straight away to say, do you love learning and teaching? Are you ready for a new challenge? You know, does the curriculum for Wales excite you? And are you committed to your own professional learning journey? So that was massive, really, in terms of getting the right audience on a virtual platform and really sharing some thoughts and ideas and just some really good professional debate and challenge at times around what leadership is and what it needs to be. And so we had a really great cohort of people who were at different points in their learning journey as well. And that brought some great understanding and some great debate across the room to talk about different aspects of leadership. So then we really co-constructed the programme. So it was across, so leaders who were new to leadership also created this programme alongside me. So it wasn't about me saying what the programme needed to be. It was about us sitting down and really thinking about the vision and the values of the Leadership Academy and what's out there right now in Wales in terms of what's already existing in programmes and what's missing. So that took us doing some focus groups with some teachers to say, okay, in your next steps for leaders, what vision do you want in terms of that programme for professional learning? So we used this approach when we planned the programme. We thought about the why. the vision, the values. We thought about the how, the pedagogy and the practice, and what that means for you as a leader. And we thought about the what, those experiences and understanding of leadership. And then we thought about the so what. So in a series of 6 sessions, which were over half days on Zoom, we really focused on the so what. We can learn the theory, but how do we apply it to the practice? So it was really about people understanding that this commitment to this professional learning was about them demonstrating that it had an impact on them. And the programme really did have an impact on leaders across Wales. The feedback was great. It was after every single session as well. And it was constructive. It wasn't just, oh, I had a lovely time. Thanks so much for the chat. It was really about that co-construction. So after every session, we said, what did you get from the new learning and that new dialogue? And what do you want in the next session? So part of the programme was to really think about their personal and professional development. And there was a huge emphasis on them as an individual person and understanding their own strengths and areas for development. It really was about theory into practice. So it was us bringing new theory and then challenging it to say, but what does it look like in practice? We also made massive links to the Leadership Academy's missions and values, and that was really strong in the programme and actually aligned a lot of what's available to leaders out there in Wales at the moment. But it was about autonomy and personal development, and this was a starting point for leaders to really think about, well, what are the next steps? And overall, what came out of the programme was this vision for well-being and self-care, that if you are going to be a leader, that you have to go into that straight from the word go, that you have this understanding that it's your responsibility to take your well-being seriously and to know the strategies that you use to take care of yourself. And that was very individualized to the individual leader. So just to outline the programme really, and for you to understand a little bit about what middle leaders went through with this programme, the first day was all about understanding yourself and that self-awareness. We did some in-depth work around personality traits. And I think when those that came onto the programme did that, they were a little bit like, why am I doing this? And how am I going to share it? And there was that kind of apprehension around, oh, what's this going to look like? It worked really effectively and asked a lot of themselves to think and to dig deep about who am I as a person and who do I want to be as a leader? And we did that at the beginning, but we revisited it at the end as well. And in every session, we talked about how our personality types influence who we are as a leader. And the groups really shared that journey throughout the reflective practice. Day 2 was about the integral skills of effective leadership and looking at curriculum for Wales and really thinking, what is it going to take for middle leaders to be successful when we're driving forward so much change? So we looked at lots of models for change then in the next session. And that mindset that actually change can be difficult and hard to manage, but also it can be exciting, and that actually with the right mindset, it's about really thinking about and digging deep about what that mindset is. And that was about growth mindset as well. So the theory that we looked at in that session was really about a growth mindset and leaders needing a growth mindset in the future. Day 4 was all about coaching and mentoring and identifying the difference between the two and how they both play a really important part in leadership going forward and what that looks like in practice. And we got an awful lot of interesting debate, I suppose, from different schools about what that looks like in practice and where it's been successful and where it's not. Because a big part of this programme was honesty and trust, so that leaders could really share what was going well, but also what wasn't going well, and start to unpick as a leader, a new leader, what you would do about that. So if something wasn't going well, how can we change that? And how can we think about it differently? The day 5 then was all about professional inquiry. And again, that was looking at what was going well and what wasn't going so well, to unpick the ways forward for them as individual schools, but also what that means in terms of leadership and what is available in the system right now. So that was to signpost and say, well, actually, there's a lot out there that we're not even aware, that I wasn't aware of before creating this course, that you can draw upon for your own professional development. And that again was about autonomy of leaders, that, finding out for yourself and making those links to everything that's happening in the system right now. Day 6 was a chance to look back and reflect. And after each session, there was pre-learning tasks and post-learning tasks, and people could access those at different levels. So if they had more time and space, they could look at them at a deeper level. But what we wanted at the end of this course was each leader to go away with a real strong sense of self, to understand who they were right now. And some of them were really honest in saying, I'm not sure I am a leader right now, or I'm not sure I'm being an effective leader, but this is the way I see myself going forward. So they each presented to the group their leadership profiles. And it was a really interesting day. And they shared a lot about their visions and their values and who they were as a person and how they feel they will lead in the future. So it was really nice to have that constructed in very different ways. Some people did it in bullet points, some people did it in presentations, but to really have that time to reflect on how they developed throughout the program as well, and to share with others and make those connections and to collaborate with others was a big part of the program. I think I just want to bring it back to this as well. Everything in terms of the feedback that we got from people that took part in this program was that it was about them knowing themselves, that to go into leadership, you can't take this for granted. So a big thing that has come since this program as well is that we've kept in contact with those that were involved in it and asked, well, what are you doing now? How has it impacted? And the big thing was that actually it's really made them think about themselves and how they show up every day and the teams that they have influence on. So that was a real strength. So one of the things we also looked at in the program was how research can work and be embedded into practice. So we had a good think about the professional learning journey, and we made those links to everything that is in the system and how that can look differently as well. So it was a big part of them creating their roadmap to leadership and what they saw that being at the moment, whether it was really small and it was just leading, say, a reception team or a year group team, or whether they saw it as a bigger role for them in the future. And it really unpicked the different leadership styles as well. And that was a really big, important thing to say that actually we have to adapt our style to suit the situation. And we brought that to life in terms of practical examples, again, from across the system of leaders at different points. We drew on some research. You can see one of the things on there was Steve Mumby. And again, we used what was happening with the Leadership Academy at the time. He was speaking at Leadership Academy, and we then used some of that information as pre-tasks to unpick what was going on in terms of the theory and what that meant for them as leaders. Okay, we then had a really, really good discussion about creating a culture within a school. And we broke that down into sections of values, beliefs, and attitudes. And this formed a massive part of those leaders really thinking about next steps around what their school's vision was for professional learning and what it looked like right now, but what the vision needed to be in the future. And what we found actually and identified is that there needed to be some more work done with leaders across Wales. And that was really great to be able to feed back as well to at consortium level, at Welsh Government level, but at Leadership Academy level as well. So them having that understanding of what that looked like in their context from 35 different settings across Wales was really great to see that there was such aspiration for change and that self-belief in the Welsh system. It really was really exciting to see. So we looked at some really key documentation in the programme as well. And I've put them here on a roadmap because it was really important that they didn't see them in isolation. So in every part of the programme, we drew it back to, well, what is in the system right now and what's working effectively? So we looked at the SLO model and how that collaboratively can work so well and be embedded into practice. We also looked at the professional learning platform in terms of that national approach and how that's been really, really successful. And we're still building on that. We looked at the national approach to professional inquiry. And of course, we looked at the curriculum for Wales in terms of that transformation of change. And leaders were able at different points to identify where they were in that journey and what had been successful for them up until date. And I have to say the SLO was being used really well, but elements of that, they didn't necessarily see it as the whole picture. I always think of it in terms of that Trivial Pursuit model, isn't it? But they were working on specific areas at that time. So it was really nice. We went into depth about how we could really look at aspects of the SLO and how that led to changes in practice being through inquiry. So the opportunities to growth, and I think I wanted to draw these back in today as so many of you sit there now thinking of yourself on that leadership journey, and you as a middle leader, maybe you're not middle leader yet, but thinking of that's my next steps and where you go. And it is about opportunity for growth. So it's about these different aspects. And I think the course allowed us to really think in depth about what's needed in the system. And that's why we created it. But those key elements that you see on that screen, and I suppose I put them there in a list, but the most important one that came out of it was about growth mindset, about grit, resilience and optimism, particularly when we ran all of this online at a time where people weren't having a lot of professional learning. So they were in isolation across the country, and people still came to the course because they wanted to grow and they wanted to develop and make those connections. So it was really important that that we made that a part of the course as well, and we didn't just ignore it. It really did become a part of the course. The key components and the feedback again allowed us to see what worked and what didn't. And hopefully we really want to run the programme again for leaders across Wales, but also to tweak it and change it based on the people there and what they want, but also what worked in terms of the feedback. So the reading and research, people didn't have enough time to do at the time. So all we could do is signpost some of that. And that was us being really reflective and saying, okay, these are some of the key texts that have formed a part of the theory in the course. And we'd like you to read them in the future and hopefully them to have an impact on your practice. So I wanted to share those 4 key ones with you today, because I think, they've massively had an impact on my practice as a leader, but I know that we use bits of them for professional learning all of the time. So I've put those on there for you today. The course as well had the overriding success was the pre-learning and the takeaway tasks. So after each professional learning session, it was to put it into practice in your own school. So programs, I think, work really effectively when you can actually see, okay, we've talked about this, we've done it, but what am I going to do now with that information? And how is it going to impact ultimately on learning and teaching of children? Keeping a journal and being reflective was a part of the course. And that was about thinking about, okay, what does that look like for me? It doesn't have to be huge. It can just be a page of notes, but it's something that could be revisited then for leaders to say, well, this is where I was at that point in time on my professional learning journey, but this is where I am now. And that was a big part of people's thinking and reflections. It was created for practitioners as well, and it really was. So what we set out, we thought was the programme. It changed direction based on the feedback, and that's really important to share. So one of the things that we really did was, you can see the leadership profile from somebody on there, and I've just screenshotted it and put it in there, but it really did think about their personality types. And then we looked at what that would mean for a team. So we constantly asked the why, the how, the what, but the so what was the important part. So everybody was feeding back they weren't having enough time and space for reflection. And that is what came from this program, is that actually that is about action and taking ownership of your context and your leadership journey and saying, how am I going to create time and space to reflect? So we used a tool called the 5 behaviours of an effective team. And they did that back in their own schools. And that was about looking at practice of their team that they were leading at that point. And that the feedback from that was it was a really good kind of reflective cycle to bring back and say, okay, here's the research, I've had a go at it, and this is the learning that I took from it. And I mentioned at the beginning really about well-being. So it wasn't just because COVID was happening around us and still is. It was about actually we don't have enough leaders in the system. And, you know, I'm sure that's why many of you have come along today. It's not easy in schools right now. I know it's definitely not in ours. But if we don't keep growing and we just stay still, we aren't going to be able to make change effective, and we aren't going to be able to have the best educational system that I believe that we can have in Wales. But that is about us being compassionate leaders and us seeing what is happening in front of us and not ignoring it. So again, that starts with self. And I'm fortunate enough that I've just come back from Finland, and I've gone across to Finland to see leadership across there. But on the visit was all about a pre-visit for our children to go out there. So our children going out and looking at education in a different system. But the one thing I took from that the Finland system seems to do so well is that they really do take well-being seriously. And they do put their staff's well-being at the head of everything else. So leaders there are they come across as very calm, and they, when you question them about it, it's just what they do, and they don't understand why it wouldn't be. So time and space is built in there for leaders to reflect. It really is. And what I took from it is this real thought about well-being personal to everybody, and hope, self-efficacy in terms of that confidence, resilience and optimism I just saw it. And it wasn't just everybody felt like they had autonomy over their own learning in Finland. And that allowed me to really reflect on our practice. And I took a lot from that visit. We also looked at, as part of the programme, and this was constructed together with some of the practitioners and the future leaders, that what makes a good leader. And we really thought about those different elements. And I think, you know, just before we kind of go into some questions, because I don't want to talk for too long, I'm aware that I've talked at you, but some of those attributes of a good leader really was about emotional intelligence. And that we take for granted that you can just do. You can't. It has to be taught. And some of the feedback from the programme was that people needed to understand what that meant, how we understand each other in terms of our staff, and how we understand our wider community from our schools is really, really important. And that comes from the ability to be able to manage relationships effectively. And if that works within a school, then the culture is right, and we see a real shift. So I wanted to share with you today, because I always like, when I come on programs and courses, to go away with something as well, to say, okay, well, how am I going to think about myself as a leader now? And the one thing that worked for me really effectively was this model to really think about, okay, if I want this vision for change, what is missing for me as a leader right now? So just as a visual there, I wanted to share this with you, and it's something we shared on the programme, that it really is important that each one of these aspects are in place in order to enable change to happen. And I suppose that question for me today, you as a leader, when you go away, having heard all of the speakers today, and that aspiration for yourself, is there anything missing for you right now? And how are you going to take charge of your own professional learning going forward and your own well-being? So I want to finish just this mini presentation about the course today with this. And a study asked 95-year-olds if they could live their lives over again, what would they do? This always makes me think as well. And they would reflect more. They'd enjoy more moments, more sunrises and sunsets, and more moments of joy. Now, for me, why can't they be part of leadership? It really is about taking joy from leadership. It doesn't have to be this hard and complex thing. It is about enjoying what you do. And that is important in terms of your self-growth. Every moment stopping and saying, what gives me the joy? If you are a leader right now, what is it that drives that joy? And make sure you get more of it, because it's what you'll remember. They would have taken more risks and chances. And one of the things I did in Finland was some cross-country skiing, which is not easy when you're walking uphill with skis in -8 degrees. So taking the opportunity to take those risks for yourself as a leader as well, that will spread across your staff, across your parents, across your children, if you lead as a role model with that. And also, it's about leaving a legacy. What would they wanted to leave behind before they die? So it's worth, you thinking about as you go into your leadership journeys now, with that in mind. It's like, what do you want to be remembered for? And who will you be as a leader? So I'm going to leave you with that, but I'm hoping Lucy's on here. I'm going to stop sharing and come back to the main screen. Lucy is one of the teachers here at Cadoxton Primary School, and somebody who has taken charge of her own professional learning journey as well. So Lucy, I don't know if you're there, but I just wouldn't mind if putting you on the spot now, I know, but just to come on and just share a little bit about the impact of this programme on you, and just one thing that you maybe took away from it. Hi, Luce.
Hello. Oh, well, Prynhawn da pawb. This is very exciting. It's just as well that picture was shown, really, because I'm not wearing any mascara now, so it's absolutely fine. Don't worry. Yeah, do you know what? It's funny because you were recapping the course, and the one thing that has been really poignant to me this year is my personality type. So I think as an adult, you think you know yourself, don't you? But then actually, the only way you really learn about yourself is from asking other people. So there was a lot of reflection on the course, and the thing that really motivated me was when you asked us to identify our drivers, what drives us. And it's funny because even I asked my class as well, and they said I was a perfectionist. So I don't know why I was surprised when I realised that, really. The coaching and the mentoring we touched on previously in professional learning, but it was lovely to come back to it and revisit again. But for me, the two main things I took away was, how do I look upon myself within a team? Especially starting to manage bigger teams now that I'm taking on more responsibilities. And then also the Leadership Academy itself, actually, and what it can offer me, and me being a bit more proactive about what I can find. So yeah, really, really interesting, which has inspired me to take on a bit more this year, leading on stuff like policy development and other things I'm completely inexperienced in, but looking forward to giving it a go. And that's all thanks to you, though, as well, Rhi. With all these people here, this wouldn't have happened if you hadn't have pointed it out to me. So a thank you to you as well.
Thanks, Susan. I really did put her on the spot there. So thank you so much for doing that. But I just want to share, Lucy won't mind me saying at all. I think, we've had discussions with Luce and other teachers in our school, and they say, how do I become a leader? And it really is that interesting thing of, isn't it? Nobody's going to tell you how to do it. They aren't. That's not how it works. It's about you having experiences and opportunities to make those mistakes and learn for yourself, but to talk with others about it, and know that the support is in the system for trust and honesty. And that's what I really want to see leaders going forward, is that we've got this honesty that we can hold our hands up and say, I made that mistake. How can I learn from it? And how can I move forward? So I hope you found that helpful today anyway. I know that we really are keen to run the programme again in the future, because the feedback was really, really great. And not just that, it allowed those teachers and young leaders that were creating the programme to really dig deep and to look at how they facilitate as well within the system. So that was a really good thing to come out of it.
Thank you so much, Rhian. As ever, a comprehensive and a very fluent presentation from you. Really, really interesting. I was sitting there wishing I'd had a course like that when I started out. It's really good. A homegrown, contextualized program to develop aspiring leaders in our system. And this is the kind of thing that the innovation program at the Academy has enabled you to do. And hopefully it will carry on and grow further and spread. So thank you so much. I won't take any questions currently, because I'm conscious of the time. If we've got time, we'll come back to you, Rhian. Kerry, I know you've had problems with internet. I believe you're now hot-wired to some mobile phone. So let's hope it all hangs in there, and then we'll hand over to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, apologies for our technical issues. We've been frantically working behind the scenes for the last hour or so trying to get back in the room, but here we are. I'm here today with some of my colleagues who are part of the Swansea Secondment project. And really, it's about, this project is about giving leaders real opportunities to develop their leadership in another context. So I'm going to ask Peter to move the slide on. So the project came about in Dunvant, where I'm head. We do have, we developed over some time a CPD continua, which looks at the entitlements and the expectations for each member of staff from TA through to HLTA, NQT, experienced teacher, sort of aspiring living leaders, etc. And there's an expectation of what I expect them to be doing at each aspect of that, their career development. And then there's the entitlements that we've looked at in terms of what they are entitled to in order to support them on their leadership journey. And that came from me. It was reflecting a little on when I first sat in the head teacher seat, what experiences I've had in order to prepare me for that role, and where I felt that there were things that were lacking. So we developed that CPD pathway within the school, and as part of that pathway, we were involved in the Leader of Learning project with Eru and Hannah Darlington, who's my teacher of there. She's going to do a little wait now. There she is. We were in the car together while we were on our way to a CPD event. She said, wouldn't it be a great idea if we could take middle leadership and senior leadership further and look at schools beyond our own and have experiences in schools beyond our own to develop those key competencies and skills. So we spoke to a few people, and it turned out that you could actually do that as part of the secondment project. So the people that you see are some of the people involved at the moment, and we came up, had a chat with one of my senior challenge advisors, and we looked at the innovation project within the National Leadership Academy, and it really helped to hone down what it is that we wanted to do. Could you move it on? So we put together a project involving a number of schools within Swansea who expressed an interest. And we decided that it would be a one-year secondment project within another school, and that it would be open to middle leaders and senior leaders. We asked schools if they would like to, who would like to be involved, and whether they had staff who would like to be involved. And we put together, a training program, an aspect of action research that teachers would be involved in, and then looked at where we could place staff in order to maximise the leadership opportunities that were available to them. And as the heads who were involved in the group, we had a minimum expectation of what we would be offering to each of the secondees in terms of training, in terms of opportunities, to give them these real opportunities to develop that leadership that they were talking about. So we took expressions of interest from other schools, we took applications from teachers, and I think one of the things that's been mentioned today is about bravery, and the people who took this opportunity. The first one that we've done in Swansea, going to another school for a year, leaving the comfort blanket of your own school and going into another school for a year, they were brave to do that, and we really didn't know how it was going to. How successful it would be. But we had a secondment agreement, we had clear expectations, we looked at placing the teachers, we had a WhatsApp group so that we could all communicate all the time. And it's been a real success. So I'm not going to talk too much, I'm actually going to hand over to the secondees themselves who have been taking part in the project. So Anna has gone from Dunvant to Bishopston.
Hi there. So as Kerry said, I'm kind of in a unique position where I actually got my first teaching position in the school I went to as a child. And whilst this has been a lovely experience, I was also very aware from my PGCE that there's lots of great things going on in other schools too. So that's sort of how the conversation came about for this sort of project. And I'm in a very lucky position in that I love the school that I'm in. I love our ethos. I love the leadership. I don't want to leave that, but I wanted some opportunities to sort of develop and look at these things, at different approaches to sort of these things in different settings. And really, it's just been a really beneficial experience so far. So we're halfway through now, and it's been a really, really positive experience. So one thing that I did find beneficial throughout my career so far is networking with others. And this project has really, really provided the opportunity to do this on a much deeper level. So obviously looking at leadership skills in different settings, looking at with the new curriculum in Wales, looking at how different schools are running with that, how we're developing assessment and developing our own sort of personalised curriculum. And I kind of always knew that maybe later on down the line, I might be looking into deputy headships and things like that. And I just really think that I wanted as much experience as possible to be able to sort of walk in those shoes later on. And have a good understanding of it in a range of different contexts. And this is what this sort of project has enabled us to do. So it's been a really positive thing from my point of view. And I would, this is something that I'd look to do again, maybe a couple of years down the line. But I think now we're also going to go around and talk about our own sort of perspectives of it. So I'm going to pass over to Lee.
Good afternoon. I'm Lee Howells. I come from Newton Primary School to Dunvant School. A little bit different to Hannah, and I've spoken to the group about this before. I personally think the beauty of this whole project is the flexibility that it has. It allows lots of different people to explore lots of different things that they're looking for on their level and to suit different schools. I got to the point in my career where I was looking to progress in school management, move on to a deputy headship. Working towards this, I completed the graduate diploma for aspiring deputy head teachers to Swansea Metropolitan University, and with the support of my home school, I don't know if I would call the home or away school, to further enhance that, and with the support of my home school at Milton, and to enhance my appeal to prospective employers, I had looked to develop cross-faith leadership by becoming foundation-based leader at my home school after spending several years as a Key Stage 2 leader. Everything I could to try and develop myself. But despite all this, sad face time, I was still finding the deputy headship openings elusive after a number of years of trying. So I decided that if you keep doing the same thing, you're always going to get the same output. I decided that I'd have to try something. And after speaking to both heads, the head at my current school, or my home school and my away school, and after some soul searching, I decided to throw my lot in with this. It's been invaluable in helping me to gain experience with regards to the strategic aspect to add to my operational experiences. I've been at Newton for 11 years. I taught at Pentraquith over in Swansea East for 4 years prior to that. It's enabled me to understand exactly where I am on my career journey realistically, and have, a few home truths given to me, and allowed me opportunities to develop myself as an effective school leader in areas of needed development where they've been identified. And these opportunities experience will allow me, I feel, to hit the ground running as a deputy head teacher when the chance presents itself, or allow me to better aid my school improvement of my home school when I return there at the end of this project.
Hi everyone, my name's Sarah Archer. So I use Lee's term. My home school is Pennard Primary School on the Gower, and I've come to Townhill Primary School close to the centre of town in Swansea. So I've sort of always known that I wanted to progress to deputy headship, but knew that the experience in a different type of school would help to broaden my CV. So a little bit of background context. I've been a leader at Pennard for 7 years, leading on a variety of different things, but mostly DCF and health and wellbeing. But it's actually where I started as an NQT. So when the opportunity came up, I jumped at it because I knew that the experience would, as I say, would broaden my CV and offer different experiences. So it has been a very big change, but I've absolutely loved it. Pennard is a medium-sized rural school and Townhill is a large urban school, so it has very different challenges, very different staff setup, very different communities. And my role here has been to strengthen the consistency of the journey of a pupil at Townhill. But for me, I think the learning has really benefited my knowledge of the new curriculum here in Wales and made me realise how important it is to get to know our pupils in the context that we're teaching them. Of course, there's lots of links we can make across Swansea and we can help each other, but also we really do need to use our stakeholders to provide them with the experiences that they need to thrive beyond the gates of your primary school. So it's been fantastic in that respect to learn lots more about the new curriculum. And as a wider benefit, I know that the network of support will continue to enhance teaching and learning across Swansea. And I think particularly post-pandemic, it's been so refreshing to be able to go out and see each other again and speak to each other and see what people are doing to support with the new curriculum. So if this opportunity widens, outside of Swansea, I'd 100% recommend taking the risk because it's been invaluable. Townhill have been incredibly welcoming, and I'm sure that's the case for, all schools across Wales. So that's my experience.
So I'll just come back on screen and move out the way so Hannah could see. My name is John. Myself and Sarah have actually directly swapped. That wasn't on purpose, it was just a coincidence. So we've actually swapped schools. So as I said, my name is John. I'm originally in Townhill Community School. Been there about 12 years, and before that I taught in Bristol. I taught across the primary school age range. As I alluded to earlier, Townhill is a large urban school. It's about 517 pupils in total, 54% preschool meals. It's situated in an area of socially and economic deprivation. Pennard, on the other scheme side of things, although it's been separate by about 5-6 miles, they have a preschool meal of about 4%, and a much smaller school of about 181 children. And when I found out the opportunity to go and work in a completely different catchment area as a way of developing my teaching and my leadership, with the idea of eventually applying to deputy headships, I thought it was an opportunity, a unique opportunity that I didn't want to pass down. And Peter, the head of Townhill, will verify that I think I responded in about 2 seconds I wanted to do it. And he asked me, did I want to go home and sleep on it? But I thought after 12 years in the same school, I just slept in it probably a bit too long. And it was time to get out there and put myself out there. At Pennard, I've had loads of opportunities. Due to the size of Townhill, some of those opportunities probably wouldn't have been available to me in my parent school. So as part of the Pennard team, I've been part of the team leadership team, and as part of that, I've had opportunities to actually input into the daily operation of the school, which in some aspects were new experiences for me. And that's been challenging considering being slap bang in the middle of a global pandemic, and all the new curriculum changes in Wales as well. So challenging times for schools. I'm sure my colleagues online will agree with that. As well as being part of the team leadership team at Pennard, I've had a chance to lead a phase. I have a chance to coordinate the literacy languages, literacy communication area of learning experience. I've had changes in People Voice, Community Links, PTA, being part of governing body subcommittees. These all experience that developed my skills within the 5 areas of professional standards, teaching and leadership. I've come away from the project mid or end of July, knowing that I'm more confident in my role as a leader, much more confident. And just working in a new environment without wanting to be cheesy, but it has reinvigorated me, and not just as a leader, but my pedagogy, just ideas, a fresh look at things, and a wide range of things. This compliment has allowed me to build working relationships with the guys previous to me have touched upon across a network of schools, and those relationships will continue. I think they're vital for any leader in order to share and gain knowledge, skills, advice. So if any colleague across Wales has a chance to take part in either this secondment in Swansea or any other similar secondment opportunity that might be offered to them, I would say grab it, get out there. I feel really lucky that Pennard, like guys earlier have said, have been welcomed into a close-knit team. And as one of the speakers said earlier, I've enjoyed it. And at the end of the day, that's why I teach. I teach because I enjoy it. Certainly not for all the free time I have, all the money. It's because I really enjoy it, and I've enjoyed this comment.
Richard Williams, moving from Bishopston Primary to Pengelly. I think it's been said really already. I think although our experiences have been very different because we're moving from different schools, the positivity for the course has been, the same for everyone. So as I said, I've been teaching in Bishopston since 2001, so I've been there a very long time. I've been all over the school really, and then I've held positions like senior management, a governor, and a short period leading the Key Stage 2 team. And I think all these changes have helped to keep me comfortable in the same school and stop that pursuit of maybe deputy head positions. So when this opportunity came along, it did feel like a good one to grasp, even if it was just for the change and the opportunity rather than the developing and looking for things like deputy head. But I have reached a point in my career where I do need to reassess what I actually want, and this has done that. This has made me realise that this is what I want to do. This is the area I want to move into now and look for more responsibilities and things like that. So it's been invaluable in that for that reason. Bringing my own ideas and skills from a very different school in Bishopston and being allowed to implement them with, no questions really. That's been excellent. Plus taking ideas from the school I'm in now in Pengelly, that things that they do well. It's been, as I say, it's been things like, working with children is the same everywhere. You're always we're in it for that reason. So that was an easily transferable skill. It's the other things that we've added to it have been invaluable. So if this is something that does get rolled out, please take the opportunity to do it. It's been a fantastic experience for me.
Rhia's not here, unfortunately. She's got COVID, so we're going to move on to the head teacher comments. We've got a couple of head teacher colleagues who've been involved here. Peter Owen and John Owen.
Nice to meet John. UK. Well, okay. I just made a comment at the end of that slide there saying that my feeling is that this should become the norm. My own feeling is that too many staff, teachers within settings in Wales are stuck. And actually, there isn't enough movement of staff across schools. People get comfortable, and unless they sort of have a major drive, to sort of move quickly to deputy to headship, it's very easy. The system allows people to sort of get a bit stuck, and then middle leaders come in below them, and it's not easy for some staff to be able to move on in their careers. So I think this provides a outstanding opportunity for staff. And I know that you just heard from all our colleagues here who took the brave steps of taking this secondment on, but all of them, bar none, have really, really enjoyed it. And I honestly look back and think, I wish I'd had that opportunity. I can't think of a better form of professional development for any teacher in moving in their journey for leadership, in taking that risk and getting out there and working in another school and implementing your ideas. So any middle leaders on here or prospective middle leaders, if you get an opportunity like this, take it. Your CV will be developed considerably for it. And I'm telling you now, as a head teacher, if I was looking to take on staff as assistant heads, deputy heads, senior leaders, I would look on much more favourably at someone who's prepared to take that risk and had already demonstrated that they could lead in another school, not just the one that they are currently in. John.
Yeah, so if we look a little bit similar, Peter and I are brothers. He's the slightly larger version, but Yeah, for us, this has been a kind of a real pleasure to do as a community of schools. Peter and I have talked many times over the years about the fact that actually, yeah, it'd be such a good thing to be able to swap teachers, and done the odd bit of sort of ads and CPD session between ourselves as schools. But when Kerry, who's the lady to kind of finish this off and start this off, she came up to us and said, you know, I've got this idea, we can actually make this happen. We bit her hand off because we just do see it as such a good opportunity. And actually, we found that, you know, the teachers that are coming in, they're bringing fresh ideas. The teachers that are leaving, we've been able to kind of really reinvigorate them, get them excited about teaching once again. And I think that sometimes you don't necessarily know what you know until you go somewhere else. Just from my own career, I was in Birmingham for a few years when I first started teaching and taught in 3 very, very different schools. And then my wife got a job down in Swansea, so we moved down this way and have worked in a couple of different schools. And just from working in different schools, I found that actually it developed my own confidence, because I went in, I already had some ideas from one school I'd worked at. I went into a new school, they didn't know those things. And suddenly I realized that I had some knowledge that I perhaps didn't even know that I had before. And so that developed me. And I can see how that's really happened with us in this secondment, that actually teachers that perhaps been in a school for a while, go to a new school, suddenly realize they've got a ton of ideas that they can share. That develops confidence. They can share the good things. They can take good things from that school. That collaboration is just so positive. So yeah, wholeheartedly recommend doing this, and we've already sort of expressed our interest to try and sign up to do it for another year. Diolch yn fawr.
Yeah, I think that's it from all of us. I hope that's been useful. I don't know if anyone has any questions or comments, etc., but thank you for your time this afternoon.
Wow. That was a really powerful presentation. Both innovation groups there, but just on that second one, what a huge endorsement of the opportunity to move from school to school. And I think Mick Waters wrote a little bit about that in terms of leadership moving in his Reimagining Schools in Wales. It didn't get taken up, and that was possibly perhaps a step too far at the time. But what you're proving is that the opportunity to move from school to school is really, really valuable. And I agree entirely with everything you said there. I think possibly the groundswell from a group like this is that we go back. Listen to me, I'm retired, but I'm with you. We go back to our schools, we go back to our governors, we go back to our local authorities, and we say, look what's happening down in Swansea. We want that opportunity. And I know Dr. Kevin Palmer, who is re-evaluating and re-establishing the national approach to professional learning. And I think you used the word, Kerry, about entitlement. And it will be called the Professional Learning Entitlement. And I think, and I will feed this back into Welsh Government, that this should be an entitlement of teachers. John Denoble will correct me. I believe in Australia, after so many years in the post, you get an opportunity to study, to go out into academia or whatever. But I think we definitely need to do something like this across Wales, that equity. So are there any questions anybody would like to ask Kerry or the team? Or are you all looking at transfers to the home or away teams in Swansea? Any questions in the chat? Anybody like to ask anything? John, can I bring you in? Is there such a thing happen in Australia?
In terms of transfers to schools, well, it's different in different jurisdictions. So in New South Wales, there were such transfers for metropolitan teachers to go into rural areas, and there were leadership opportunities, but there wasn't anything formal that I know about that's happened in the last 10 years in that direction. But yeah, for ordinary teachers wishing to, expand their horizons, yeah, sure thing, moving around and appointments and all that, but not in the leadership area.
I think one of the barriers in Wales staff moving, i.e. moving jobs and moving roles, is that we have this kind of progression, pay progression, and those staff then are always ending up competing against newly qualified staff who, you know, if you're looking quite simply at the budget, at the finance side of things, they're competing against staff who come in a lot cheaper. That's my personal view. And I know when we visited Ontario and we looked at leadership in Ontario, for deputies, they were employed by the school board broadly, and they were moved every 5 to 8 years, and the same for headship. And unless you'd been a vice principal in at least 2 schools, then you weren't really considered for a principal role in Ontario. So I think we've got a lot to learn, and I think you're certainly leading the way there.